Welcome back then folks to the second build of day 3 in Special Projects pack number 15 of course. This is the car which raised the most questions in the trailer because for a lot of you won't be familiar with what this is. It is a bit of a weird car because I talked about this in the members section not too long ago on the channel in a throwback review from Forza 1. This was a vehicle in Forza Motorsport 1 which was never featured again. Of course, we technically have a Spec C Subaru featured in multiple Forza games, mostly as unicorn cars, but this specific one was a bit weird, and you weren't really told any information about it. So it had this livery, of course. And incidentally, we've done this before, we're going to do it again. This livery has 5 likes. No comments. So you know the drill, give the player a ton of love. You don't have to say you're from the channel, of course you could, but yeah, get this build out there, get the tune out there, because as far as I could tell, they seem to be the only person who's done this as well. And they've done a couple of throwback Forza liveries, which of course I like to see. But to go back to the car, as you can see from the specs over there, it's a bit of a weird one, because 380 horsepower is a hell of a lot. That's way more than the actual Spec C had. If I recall correctly, I think it's, 320 probably at the most. And the weight is also lower. 1,334 kilos is very, very low. As you'd expect, this thing was properly quick, even with nothing done to it. So the story is a weird one. I decided then to essentially make the Gran Turismo equivalent. Just recreate that car with a couple of liberties taken in terms of how we got that amount of power, of course, because you're not told that in Forza 1, like I said, just as kind of a unicorn car, very Forza style. Plus, I just like some of these weird cars that older games had for no apparent reason sometimes, special editions and stuff like that. Now, as far as the build, it's not too expensive to get. Of course, you could buy the Subaru from the used dealer, or you can get it from the Subaru dealership anyway, and the body parts are, of course, fitted when you grab the livery anyway. As far as the actual bits and bobs that we've got the sports air filter, the sports silencer, the pads, the stage 1 weight. I've opted to leave it on sports hard tyres just to make it a bit more realistic, a bit more useful, and it's not too far off the Mitsubishi FQ400 build, of course, in terms of the point level. Bit higher, I think mostly because of the weight advantage, because it is quite a lot lighter in the case of this one. As far as the club sport stuff, the clutch and flywheel, the sports discs, we've got the power restrictor and the ballast, of course, as usual. As far as the semi-racing stuff, the fully customised computer, I've gone for the medium RPM turbo and the sports intercooler. I've opted for the manual fully customised transmission because I didn't want it to quite have the full-on sequential. You want it to still feel like a road car with a bit of that rally kind of vibe in there. Plus, of course, the manual version drops the points a bit as well, so it makes it a bit more flexible in terms of the point level. We've got the fully customised diff, of course, the height adjustable sports suspension. For the racing bits, we have the torque vectoring centered diff, as I always like to have, if at all possible, on a four-wheel drive car, the steering angle adapter, and for the ultimate stuff, there is nothing fitted. So, like I said, it's a pretty straightforward build. Barely over 550 points. The only thing which is just a little bit off is that car in Forza 1 has exactly 380 horses. This, as you can see, has 379. The weight is exactly the same as Forza though, so if you do want to be a stickler, and of course really get that power level right, you'll have to chop and change parts around, maybe restrict it a little bit. And like I said before with a different build, I didn't really want to get into that. I wanted to keep it as close and as streamlined as far as parts and restrictions go as reasonably possible. So, we've got the sports hard tyres fitted. For the suspension, 125mm and 135 on the rear, 1 for anti-roll, 25 and 45 for the dampers, 2.05 for the springs, a little bit of camber, 1 degree front and rear. Of course, the toe is fixed on this one with that particular suspension setup, so 0.20 in on the rear. For the diff, I've opted for 1010, 30 on the back, with, no surprise, me being me, a 50-50 split. As far as the transmission, relatively close ratio, nothing too crazy, up around, what's that, like 170-ish miles an hour, something like that, on 280 kilometers an hour auto setting. 20 kilos of ballast brings us up nicely to that Forza weight. I've opted to leave it right in the middle. As far as the power restriction, there is none applied. For the downforce, front is non-adjustable. The rear, I've got as low as possible. I didn't want it to be too heavy on the downforce at the back, especially when it's got none on the front. As far as the rest, all of this is pretty simple because you already saw us fit it. So, like I said, barely over 550 points. Great rival for the Mitsubishi. You could even bump it down just a little bit to get it to that level if you wanted to use it for certain events. And, of course, all that leaves us to do is to jump out, of course, to a racing circuit and show you what it can do in practice. For some people, I think this could end up being maybe your favourite build out of the whole week, because for one thing, so few people, especially those who haven't played Forza obviously, and even those who have played Forza, you'd have to have played the earlier games or at least be familiar with them. Most of you will have never seen this car, never heard of it before, and it is quite a fascinating vehicle, as you can kind of tell. I think going in with little to no expectation and not hearing about the car before, you can be more pleasantly surprised. And regardless of the Forza connection, a Subaru in Spec C trim with 380 horses, well, that's bound to be something special anyway. It certainly lives up to the special project's name in that regard. It's properly quick, there's a hint of understeer, but really nothing too bad. This is, I would say, a significantly faster feeling car than even the FQ400 is, so if you do want to try something a bit different with your Subaru, this is certainly very different. It's got a hell of a spec sheet, especially in standard form in Forza with these numbers, so yeah, give it a try, see what you think of it. Of course, it has plenty of potential in career mode, or if nothing else, just as a fun little unicorn. And like I said, with only 5 likes as of releasing the video, give the player some love, and especially, like I said, being the only one I could find, it deserves a lot more love than that. Of course though, that's it for this build. Check out the 4 remaining this week, check out the ones which we've already done in the past few days as well, and I'll see you next time. But for now, thanks for watching.